If you do not take control of your life, someone else will. Jack Welch, let that sink in. Not in a motivational poster way, in a real, eerie, and deeply unsettling way. Because every day you wake up, your attention is already under attack. You are not just being distracted. You are being trained to stay weak. You scroll because they want you scrolling. Every notification is a leash. Every trend is bait. And the scariest part? Most men have no idea how easily their minds are being manipulated. We live in a world where being unfocused is normal, where reacting emotionally is praised, and where silence is mistaken for weakness. But that is not normal. That is the system winning. Control is no longer about chains. It is about algorithms. That is why the modern man, who learns to master his attention, becomes a ghost in the machine. He disappears from the noise. He reclaims his mind. And when he returns, nobody recognizes him, because now he is dangerous. Let me be clear. This is not some philosophical ramble about meditation and peace. This is war. Mental war, emotional war, psychological leverage. I used to be like them, needing to be seen, liked, understood. But one day I asked myself, why do I feel tired even when I do nothing? The answer was brutal. Because my energy was being drained by noise I did not choose. I stopped chasing approval. I stopped reacting to nonsense. I started studying silence like it was a language. And everything changed, not instantly, but permanently. The successful warrior is the average man with laser-like focus. Bruce Lee, that quote haunted me. Because it is not about being a genius or a guru. It is about eliminating everything that makes you less sharp, less still, less you. So ask yourself, when was the last time you were truly in control of your own mind? Not your schedule, not your goals, your mind. If that question makes you pause, good, because that is where we begin. This journey is not about becoming louder. It is about becoming undeniable in silence. 1. Focus is a weapon, not a philosophy. They do not need to break you. They just need you distracted. That is the new battlefield. Not bullets, not bombs, but broken focus. And the worst part? You probably feel it. That slow, dull sense of being pulled in 100 directions. Never really present, never really clear. You are busy, but are you building anything real? What you focus on expands. Tony Robbins, this is not motivational fluff. This is cause and effect. Attention is not just awareness, it is currency. Where it flows, life grows. And where it leaks, everything weakens. Your ambition, your presence, your masculinity. Let me ask you something real. When was the last time you went 1 full hour doing one thing with complete, undivided focus? If that question makes you uncomfortable, it should. Distraction is not a glitch. It is the design. I realized this the hard way. There was a time when I started my mornings checking messages, watching short videos, chasing emails, all under the illusion of being productive. But by noon, I was already drained. Why? Because my focus was bleeding out, little by little, into things that meant nothing. And that is exactly what they want. A distracted man is not dangerous. He is compliant, predictable. Trained, focus in its rawest form is power. Pure and unfiltered. It sharpens decision-making. It drowns out fear. It makes your presence louder without raising your voice. There is something almost haunting about a man who is fully present. He does not react. He calculates. He speaks less, but when he does, everyone listens. You know that man. You have seen him in rooms, and you could not ignore him even if you tried. That is not charisma. That is concentration turned into dominance. The successful man is the one who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks others have thrown at him. David Brinkley. But you cannot build that foundation while reacting to every brick. Let them throw. You build. So how do you weaponize focus? You start small. One deep hour, one disciplined morning, one silent walk with no phone, no music, just thoughts. This is not about becoming robotic. It is about becoming selective. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves a reaction. Not every opportunity is worth your attention, because attention is now the rarest commodity you own. And here is the cold truth. If you do not master your focus, someone else will monetize it. And they already are. So from this moment forward, treat your attention like a loaded gun. Do not point it carelessly. Do not fire it on impulse. Aim with intent. Because every man who ever built an empire started by guarding his focus like it was life itself. This is not mindset. This is survival. 2. Your value is not in presence. IT is in absence. Most men think being seen is power. It is not. Being missed is. Invisibility used to terrify me. I thought, if I am not around, they will forget me. But then I asked a harder question. What if they only value me because I'm always available? You will be too much for some people. Those are not your people. Unknown. That quote hit me like a slap. Because the truth is, the more accessible you are, the more you get taken for granted. Familiarity is a double-edged sword. What people see too often, they start to devalue, not out of cruelty, but out of psychological habit. The rare becomes revered. The common becomes ignored. Silence is not absence. It is leverage. I remember going completely off the radar for 3 months. No texts, no posts, no explanations. I did not vanish out of spite. I vanished to build in peace. And when I returned, everything had shifted. People talked slower, listened more, not because I was louder, but because my absence had created space for respect. Being constantly present is not loyalty. It is weakness in disguise. If people can predict your availability, they learn how to manipulate it. If I call, he picks up. If I guilt him, he comes running. If I ignore him, he chases. That is not connection. That is conditioning. The hardest walk is walking alone. But it is the walk that makes you the strongest. Unknown, you do not need to disappear to punish anyone. You disappear to purify your value, to disconnect your worth from their attention, to remind yourself and them that your presence is a privilege, not a default. Absence reveals truth, the friend who never checks in, the partner who only loves your attention, the family member who uses your silence as ammo to guilt you. Disappearing filters out the noise. Not everyone misses you when you are gone, but the ones who matter, they adjust, they reflect, they shift. So how do you turn absence into power? You do it without drama. You do not announce your exit. You do not post vague captions. You simply pull back your energy and let people experience the void. Let them feel the weight of what they used to ignore. Let them wonder, why does his absence feel louder than most people's presence? Here is my truth. Your value is not built by always showing up. It is built by knowing when to walk away, by becoming so disciplined, so focused, so rare, that your silence becomes a form of pressure. And when you return, you do not explain where you have been. You let your evolution do the talking. Because the man who learns to be missed, not seen, becomes impossible to forget. 3. The first to react is always the first to lose. They are not provoking you for truth. They are provoking you for control. That is the part most men do not understand. When someone pushes your buttons, they are not curious. They are calculating. And every time you react, you prove something terrifying. You are predictable. He who engages you conquers you. Elizabeth Kenny. Sit with that, not just as a quote, as a warning. Because when you explode, defend, argue, or over-explain, you give them access to your energy, to your psychology, to your power. I used to respond to everything, every comment, every challenge, every disrespect. I thought silence meant weakness. But the more I reacted, the more I lost ground. Not just with others, but with myself. There is a kind of emptiness that hits after a useless emotional battle. You win the argument, but lose your balance. You speak the truth, but hand in the manual to your emotions. Eventually, I had to ask myself, why am I still proving anything to people I do not even respect? Power does not rush, it waits. It watches, it calculates. A powerful man is not the loudest. He is the one you cannot provoke, the one you cannot read, the one who stares through chaos and says nothing. Let me give you a personal example. I was once in a business negotiation where the other party raised their voice, threw veiled insults, tried to make it personal. 10 years ago, I would have snapped, but I sat still. I let their chaos bounce off the walls. I stayed quiet, and when I finally spoke, it was surgical. They folded, not because I overpowered them, but because I stayed colder longer. Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. Napoleon Bonaparte: reactivity interrupts strategy. Emotion dilutes precision, and clarity, the highest form of power, cannot survive in a reactive mind. So what is the play? You train your nervous system to pause. You breathe. You buy time with silence. You respond only when the outcome serves you. Not your pride, not your mood, your long game. And when someone disrespects you, you do not react. You adjust access. That is how mature men punish, by withdrawing presence, not throwing punches. Here is the part that stings. People will say you are cold, distant, arrogant. Let them, because those words are the sound of losing control over you. The world tests you through noise. You rise by staying silent inside it. Master your reactions, and you become unreadable. Become unreadable, and you become untouchable. And that is where the game changes. You are no longer playing defense. You become the one they cannot move. 4. SELF focus equals self-generated leverage. You are not supposed to be everywhere. You are supposed to be precise. Look around. Everyone is busy. Everyone is hustling. But almost no one is dangerous. Because danger comes from depth, not noise. And you cannot go deep without self-focus. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Abraham Lincoln. That is leverage. Not doing more, but doing sharper. And the axe, for modern men, is their mind, their attention, their control over their time. Self-focus is not selfish. It is strategic isolation. When you choose to pull away from the noise, you start building silently, but not aimlessly. You begin stacking skills, refining clarity, sharpening your emotional edge. It is like investing in a stock nobody is watching, until it explodes. I still remember the season I stopped going out. No parties, no group chats, just long hours at the gym, longer nights with books, and cold early mornings building projects. No one noticed until they did. By then, I had built so much leverage they could not catch up, even if they started running. There are 2 types of men in every room, the one talking and the one calculating. The first wants attention. The second is watching, collecting, waiting. Guess who controls the room? You do not dominate by being loud. You dominate by knowing what everyone else is missing, because you are too focused to be distracted. Control your own mind or someone else will. Napoleon Hill. That is not paranoia. That is the formula. If you do not direct your energy inward, the world will pull it outward and use it against you. When you lack self-focus, you become dependent on reaction, and a reactive man cannot hold power for long. The game is not about being better than them. It is about becoming too rare to compare. You become rare when you stop needing the spotlight. When you disappear for a year and return unrecognizable, not because you changed your outfit, but because you increased your value silently. So what does self-focus actually look like? It is not just routines and calendars. It is discipline in the dark. It is choosing to sharpen your mind instead of proving your point. It is walking away from arguments because you are building leverage they will never see coming. You do not need to win today. You just need to keep stacking power. Because when you are focused on you, every moment becomes a weapon, and every sacrifice becomes a deposit into your future dominance. Your time is not just time. It is leverage waiting to be forged. You just need to stop leaking it into the hands of people who would never build you. Focus inward. Because when your value rises quietly, your presence speaks violently. 5. Stop needing to be seen. That is how they control you. You are not winning because people clap. You are winning because you no longer care if they do. This is where most men fall. Not from failure, not from weakness, but from the silent addiction to visibility. They want to be seen, heard, acknowledged. But here is the catch. The more you need attention, the easier you are to control. If you live for their approval, you will die from their rejection. Lecrae, think about that. That is not poetry. That is a warning. If your self-worth is built on applause, you will panic when it stops. If your confidence rises with likes, it will collapse with silence. The platforms, the culture, even your social circle, they reward visibility, not strength. The guy posting his grind every day, he looks like he is working. But the guy you have not heard from in months, he is the one you should be nervous about. Visibility feels like progress, but it is often performance. I used to share everything, wins, ideas, even pain. I wanted people to know I was trying. I wanted to feel validated. But deep down, I was bleeding energy. Because every post was a silent contract. Please notice me. Please affirm this. It was subtle, but toxic. Until one day I asked myself, why do I need them to know before the result is real? I went dark. Not out of bitterness, but to test something. Could I build in silence? Could I do the work without the audience? What I found was terrifying at first. No applause. No feedback. Just me. But after a while, it felt like freedom. Because my progress no longer belonged to anyone else. The loudest man in the room is often the weakest. Frank Lucas, you do not need to declare the plan. You do not need to announce every move. Real power is not in being seen. It is in becoming undeniable without explanation. You become dangerous the moment your validation comes from execution, not exposure. That is when people stop knowing what to do with you, because they cannot track your every step. They do not know when you will strike. They only feel it when you arrive, already finished. So how do you kill the addiction to being seen? You go silent when you feel the urge to share. You document, but privately. You succeed, but say nothing. You make them feel your absence more than your presence. And when you come back, they do not hear noise. They feel impact. Here is the truth that will make some uncomfortable. If they can track your every move, they can predict you. And if they can predict you, they can manipulate you. So stop craving visibility. Start mastering invisibility. Because the man who no longer needs to be seen becomes the one they can never ignore. 6. Discipline is the fortress emotion, is the enemy at the gate. Your life is not falling apart because you are weak. It is falling apart because you are inconsistent. People romanticize growth, success, legacy. But the truth is far colder. Without discipline, you are building your future on sand. We do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. James Clear. You can dream. You can hope. You can pray. But in the end, your system wins. And if you have none, The chaos outside becomes the chaos inside. I used to rely on motivation. If I felt inspired, I worked. If I felt down, I scrolled. It was subtle, but it made me soft, because I let feelings determine action. And when life hit harder, I folded. Then I realized something brutal. Discipline is the only thing that cannot be manipulated. Not by your mood, not by trends, not even by failure. Your emotions are not facts. They are tests. Most people treat emotions like orders. I do not feel like it, so I will not do it. But that logic is suicidal, especially for men who want to lead. If I only trained on days I felt good, I would still be weak. If I only wrote when I felt creative, I would still be unknown. If I only followed through when life was comfortable, I would still be broke, financially and mentally. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. Viktor Frankl, that response? It is built inside your routine. Discipline is not rigidness. It is freedom with form. It gives you predictability in a world that constantly throws curveballs. Think of discipline like a fortress. Every morning routine is a wall. Every task completed is a brick. Every delayed impulse is a gate reinforced. Meanwhile, emotion is the enemy pretending to be a friend. It whispers, "You deserve to rest. You had a hard day. You can cheat this one time." But that is the trap. Comfort is the killer dressed in kindness. Here is the strategy. Build a system so strong that it moves without needing permission. Your body wakes up before your mind argues. Your day flows even when your mood crashes. And when everyone else is burning in emotional firestorms, you walk through it like smoke. You will not always be excited, but you can always be exact. Discipline is not glamorous. It is not sexy. But it is the one thing you can wake up and trust when everything else is breaking down. Here is the final truth. The world does not fear your passion. It fears your consistency, because passion fades. Emotion lies. But when you show up day after day, regardless of what you feel, you become uncheckable. And in that stillness, in that structure, you become the man no storm can move. 7. Emotional detachment. Fight cold or fall fast. They are not trying to connect with you. They are trying to control you. When someone provokes you, it is not always personal. Sometimes it is tactical, because once they learn what triggers you, they own you. He who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still. Lao Tzu, that is not a feel-good quote. That is a psychological law, because control is not about dominating others. It is about being unmoved when they try to dominate you. Here is the trap. You think reacting makes you strong. I used to believe that too. That if I clapped back, argued, got loud, I was defending my pride. But over time, I realized something chilling. Every time I reacted, I exposed my inner map. What I feared, what I cared about, what they could use. And the people who pretended to love me, they remembered every reaction and saved it for later. Emotion, when unguarded, is leverage handed to the wrong hands. Think about a game of chess. You do not win by feeling more. You win by seeing more, staying calm under pressure, and moving when it matters, not when you are mad. It is the same with life. You cannot win long-term if your mind flips every time someone pulls a string. Never let your enemy see what makes you bleed. Unknown. That quote changed how I speak, how I breathe, and how I respond. Now, when someone insults me, I stare. When someone baits me, I stay still. And when someone pushes, I lean back. Not because I am weak, but because I am no longer willing to leak strategic energy into emotional traps. Detachment is not numbness. It is clarity. You still feel. You still care. But you learn to delay your emotions long enough to choose the most effective response. I remember one moment clearly. Someone close betrayed me. The old me wanted revenge, but I paused, took 3 days in silence, then made a move they never saw coming. I did not yell. I replaced them. And that move, done in silence, shifted the power forever. Your emotional control is your armor, not your weakness. And when others try to read you and find nothing, they panic, because unpredictable men are feared. And feared men never get played twice. So how do you build detachment? You start by noticing your patterns. What makes you lash out? Who controls your moods? Then you install space between stimulus and response. You pause. You calculate. And you never act until it serves your higher mission. Here's the brutal truth. Most men will stay reactive their whole lives. They will confuse loudness for strength. But the few who learn to separate emotion from execution, they do not fight harder. They fight smarter. And in the end, a man who feels everything but shows nothing becomes the most feared presence in every room. 8. Solitude is not punishment. IT is purification. If the silence scares you, it means you have been avoiding the truth inside it. Most men run from solitude like it is a cage. But what if it is not a prison? What if it is a forge? Loneliness is the poverty of self. Solitude is the richness of self. May Sarton's solitude is not about being alone. It is about finally being undisturbed. By voices, by expectations, by performance. It is the moment when everything fake falls off, and all that is left is you. That is why it is so uncomfortable. Because in solitude, the mask drops, and what you see is either the man you are, or the man you have avoided becoming. I remember when I first pulled away from everyone. No texts, no replies, no updates. The silence was deafening. At first, I questioned myself. Am I isolating? Am I disappearing too far? But then something shifted. My thoughts got clearer. My mornings got simpler. My time started to feel expensive. That is when I realized I was not losing connection. I was gaining command. Most men try to heal around the very people who broke them. They stay emotionally accessible. They stay available to confusion, manipulation, and guilt. And because of that, they never reset. But in solitude, the truth hits raw and clean. You are either your own sanctuary or your own saboteur. The monotony and solitude of a quiet life stimulates the creative mind. Albert Einstein understood this, that your greatest breakthroughs will not come in a crowd. They come when you are left alone with your demons and refuse to run from them. Solitude refines your circle without you saying a word. People will fall off. Some will accuse you of being cold. Others will project guilt. Let them, because your absence is the filter. And what remains after you have gone silent? That is what was always real. So what do you do in solitude? You build. You audit your patterns. You train your body with no applause. You study what nobody around you is willing to read. You confront that one version of you you never want to meet again. And you bury him in the discipline of quiet days. The crowd will not understand, and they are not supposed to. Solitude is not performance. It is not for social media. It is where power gets cold and concentrated. And when you finally emerge from it, you are not louder. You are sharper, quieter, more exact. Here is the unsettling truth. The man who learns to be alone without collapsing becomes the one no one can shake when everything else falls apart. Solitude did not break him. It built him. And now, they do not recognize who he has become because they were never quiet enough to hear him being made. 9. Evolution requires nitrogen monoxide. Applause only results. If they need to see it to believe it, you are evolving too loudly. Real transformation does not announce itself. It moves in silence. It is not a performance. It is a replacement of mindset. of identity, of everything you used to tolerate. Do not explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus, you do not owe them an update. You owe yourself results. Because applause is not confirmation of growth, it is often a distraction from it. I used to chase recognition. Every step forward I shared it. Every little win, I wanted people to clap. But deep down, it created a dependency. My pace slowed every time they stopped cheering. My progress stalled every time their eyes looked away. Until I reached a point that terrified me. I could not move unless someone was watching. That was the moment I knew something had to die. Not my ambition, but my need to be witnessed. True evolution begins the moment you stop needing their reactions. It is in the mornings no one sees. The nights when nobody texts. The choices made with zero recognition. That is where the real shift happens. Not when they clap, but when you refuse to need it. You were born an original. Do not die a copy. John Mason. When you evolve to match what they expect, you are still a prisoner. Even if they praise you. Even if they say you are growing. Because it is not your transformation. It is their blueprint. But when you evolve past their understanding, when your silence makes them nervous, when they ask, what happened to him? And no one has the answer. That is when you are finally moving on your own terms. Here is what most people will never tell you. They do not fear your change. They fear your independence. Because the old you was manageable, predictable, comfortable, but the new you? Focused, unreachable, emotionally unavailable to nonsense. That is when the tables turn. So how do you know you are evolving, right? When you are no longer in the room. But the room still changes because of you. When your silence creates pressure. When your absence is louder than your past presence. I remember a close friend once asked, "Why do you not post your work anymore?" I smiled. Because the work is no longer for them. It is for legacy, not for likes. Evolution is not something you show. It is something you become. You do not need validation to keep moving. You need conviction. And when that conviction becomes stronger than your ego, you stop performing and start becoming undeniable. So if no one claps for you, good. It means you are finally building something so real. It does not need their approval to exist. Conclusion. Kill the weak version. Build the mental fortress. If your mind is not your stronghold, it becomes your prison. What we walk through in this video is not just strategy. It is a blueprint to dismantle weakness and rebuild yourself into someone that no chaos can shake. You learn that focus is not isolation, it is command. That being unseen is more powerful than being liked. That silence is not absence, it is leverage. That emotional detachment, solitude, discipline, they are not cold traits. They are the ingredients of men who lead without noise. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you have not found it yet, keep looking. Do not settle. Steve Jobs, but in this era, I would add, do not settle for who you are right now. Kill him if you must. Because that version of you who keeps getting triggered, keeps chasing applause, keeps avoiding discomfort, he cannot walk with you into the future you want. You do not negotiate with that version. You replace him. Let me leave you with this. What would happen if you vanished for 90 days and gave everything to your evolution? No announcements, no distractions, no emotion-led reactions. Just you, your code, and cold execution. Would you recognize the man who came back? So here is what I want you to do. Drop a comment. Tell me what version of yourself you are about to bury. What distraction are you cutting off? What system will you build next? And if this video pushed you, even just a little, subscribe now. Because the next one, it will go deeper, sharper, colder, and you do not want to miss it. The war for your mind has already begun. The question is, have you started building your fortress?